Hi and welcome. I think I'm going to move this over here so that I can look at it and look you in the eye. Um, so welcome to Chapter 3, Part 2. Chapter 3, Part 2, we're going to talk about how to do research into the behaviors, characteristics of businesses rather than individuals. So in Part 1, we talked about individuals. We talked about all those different kinds of cultural and personal issues that have an effect on people's needs and wants, and we're trying to meet needs and wants, so that's important. For businesses, it's a little different. So in businesses, there are internal organizational connections with the players inside the businesses and the people they're already dealing with in whatever market we may be interested in approaching them about. So whatever products we're trying to approach, and they probably already have a supplier. So we want to look at their existing suppliers and we want to look at internal players, and then we need to look at what kind of company they are and something called derived demand. So we're going to go into those characteristics. So internally, we've got people who initiate decisions, and that's different in different organizations. Sometimes it's the users of the product that initiate decisions. Sometimes it might be the engineering department that initiates decisions for new products. It might be production. It might be finance. It might be IT. Where does the decision that we need something come from? In any organization, in every organization, it's different. Then there are the people who actually have to use whatever product or service you're selling. So those are different maybe from the people who initiate the decision. The users might be a different group within an organization. Every organization, or many organizations, have people who evaluate different products to decide which ones might be the right ones to acquire. And those might be people on the initiation side or in the users, or they might be a whole third group. So we need to know who those players are. And finally, we got the people who pay the bills, and they have a lot of power too. They make in terms of making decisions. So when a company decides to buy a product, we have all of these people who are involved. So let's take a product that most companies have, which is copy machines. How do we decide which copy machine we're going to use? How do we decide to buy Xeroxes or Ricos or whoever else makes copy machines? Who makes that decision? If I'm a copy machine maker and seller, I need to know. I need to know who to approach. First of all, who decides we need new copy machines? Who is it that actually uses the copy machines? Are they the same people, or are they different people, or different pieces of the organization? Once the company decides they need new copy machines and the users are on board that they need new copy machines, who evaluates the different possibilities? I don't know. Maybe it's the IT department that does evaluations. The people who initiate the decisions is, I don't know, the purchasing department. And the users are the people that are out there, executives or whatever, office people who need the copy machines. Three different groups. I have to approach all three groups if I'm going to sell copy machines to an organization. And finally, finance comes in and says, wait a minute, we can't spend that much money. We have to find a cheaper alternative. Or we'd like to work with this company, but they have to come up with a different way to sell it to us because we can't come up with $500,000 this year. Can they sell it? Can they take payment over time? Or all sorts of different possibilities. So all of those players are important, and you have to identify them before you even start making a marketing plan to sell copy machines to particular kinds of organizations. The second thing you want to know is, who are they using for copy machines now? Who's selling them their copy machines now? What's their relationship? Do they have a long-term contract for copy machines? And if that's the case, why am I even talking to them? Because even if they're dissatisfied, which is the next thing, people are dissatisfied with the copy machines in the organization. We've signed up for 5 years. We got this for 3 more years. We're not going to make a change for 3 years. We got a long-term contract. Okay, we're dissatisfied, but so what? You're gonna live with it. So long-term contracts, evaluations. Are my needs being met? Do I have something in my copy machine that's going to meet needs that people in this organization don't even know that can be met? That my copy machines are magic. They can do this, that, or the other thing. That would make your job way easier, make you more efficient, make you better. Maybe I can meet some needs that are unmet. So, and they may not even know they have these unmet needs. So that's part of satisfying wants and needs. Other things I need to know about business-to-business marketing is how big the company is, what business are they in. So if I'm selling copy machines, I may have a target of various kinds of industries. I might be targeting the legal profession. I might be targeting the accounting profession. I might be targeting education. I might be in all sorts of different organizations that need copy machines. So I need to know where the companies that I'm targeting fit, how big they are, what industry they're in. Are they growing or shrinking or staying the same? How competitive is the market they're in? Are they in a very competitive market, so therefore they're going to be very concerned about efficiency and costs? Or is it maybe not quite so competitive? What are their standardized buying policies and procedures? Every company has policies and procedures. What's the company I'm targeting looking at like? Or what other company, the multiple companies I'm targeting, what do they look like? Do they have financial constraints? And do they have a pattern when they buy things? Do they have a cycle so that they buy everything because they have a down cycle in their industry? Do they have free time in June and July, so that's when they do it? Or do they have free time in February and March, so that's when they look at acquisitions? You don't want to be talking to them when they're too busy to talk to you. So how do I determine that? Derived demand is pretty much what you have to deal with in determining how much of your product somebody needs. So what is derived demand? Well, they need as many copy machines as they have employees. So if their employee headcount is going up, maybe they need more copy machines. If their employee headcount is going down, maybe they need less. If it's the educational market, if they have more students, they may need more copy machines. And if they have fewer students, they need less. Derived demand, I always find, is really easy to think about in terms of a manufacturing operation. Let's say I'm Goodyear Tire and I sell tires to Ford Motor Company. Okay. And I worked really hard. My engineering department designed a special tire for the Ford Explorer. And that's what Ford specs, and that's what they put on every new Ford Explorer gets Goodyear tires. A specific model of Goodyear tire. And every Ford Explorer has, let's say, 4 of these, because then they have a donut for a spare. So we don't get to sell them the spare tire. We get to sell 4 tires for every new Ford Explorer. Well, how many tires am I going to sell Ford? I'm going to sell them as many tires as they sell Explorers. The demand for the tires is derived from the demand for the Ford Explorer. If they're going to sell 100,000 Ford Explorers this year, I'm going to sell 400,000 tires. If they sell 150,000, I'll sell 600,000 tires. So the demand is driven by the demand for the ultimate product. And that's pretty easy to understand. So Ford is not going to buy more of my tires than they sell Explorers. They are just going to buy enough for the Explorers they can sell. So derived demand is a really important concept. No matter how much Ford likes my tires, they're only going to buy enough to put on the car, the the truck or the Explorers that they're selling, the SUVs that they're selling. The other thing about business-to-business marketing is that most products that go to businesses, or most products that go to consumers, end up being sold to businesses first. So if I'm selling a consumer product, I'm probably going to be selling it through intermediaries. I'm going to sell it to a retailer who's going to sell it to the consumer, or I may sell it to a wholesaler who then sells it to a retailer who then sells it to a consumer. So I'm definitely marketing to two tiers. I'm marketing to the retailer, let's say, and then to the consumer. So if I'm selling Cheerios, I have to convince the supermarket to carry Cheerios, and then I have to convince the consumer to buy Cheerios. So I have two different kinds of marketing. I have consumer marketing. Cheerios are good for you and they taste good and whatever. But then I have to have business-to-business marketing, convincing the supermarket that Cheerios are worth carrying and they're worth positioning in my supermarket in a place that is attractive so that people will find them. So how do I do that? I have to do two different sets. So I have two marketing plans. I'm selling Cheerios. I got a marketing plan to consumers and a marketing plan to the grocery store, to the supermarket. I might sell some Cheerios direct to the consumer on my own website, but I don't think that happens very much in the cereal market. So I'm probably going to be going through an intermediary. Same thing happens in business-to-business markets. Let's say I'm selling diesel engines to tugboats. So people who own tugboats are doing repowers and repowering their tugboats with new diesel engines. Well, I might have my own sales force out there selling direct if I'm Caterpillar, or I might use resellers. I may have wholesalers who sell to that specialty market called marine, because Caterpillar sells to lots of different kinds of markets. Maybe in the marine market they use a reseller, a wholesaler, or a manufacturer's representative, somebody who works specifically in the marine market, has contacts in the marine market, and sells Caterpillar product into the marine market. So I'm using, once again, I have to convince the manufacturer's reps to sell my product rather than some other, because they're probably representing my product and maybe some other products. Maybe they're representing Caterpillar and Perkins. I want them to sell Caterpillar. So that I have to work with them to market to them, and then they market to the end user, which would be the tugboat company that's repowering. So once again, multi-tier marketing. So marketing plans have to address more than just the end consumer. They have to address those intermediaries. So in terms of research, we have a research librarian in the course, so she should be teaching you about this rather than me, because she's a lot more experienced than I am about this. But when you're doing marketing research, there are two basic kinds of research you can do. You can do secondary research or primary research. And secondary research, we're going to use information that's been collected by someone else, some other entity, and we're going to use it for our purposes. And the U.S. Census is a good example of secondary research that's used a lot in marketing. It's very, very comprehensive. It's actually a pretty good database. It's relatively accurate, and we can drill down through that database and find out a lot about who and what characteristics a consumer market might have in a particular area or a particular. And we're looking for people of a certain age and people of a certain that live in a certain area and have a certain income. All of that data is available from the U.S. Census and from the UN. Also has some information there too. So that's secondary research. Primary research, we're going to go out and do it ourselves. We know what we need. We're going to do our own research to figure out what it is that we're trying to learn. before we jump into something. This is a bunch of various research areas. This is kind of old data, but these links still work. And there's lots of additional data. The library has a bunch of really good databases that have a lot of secondary research on companies and industries. So there's lots of information there. When you're using secondary research, definitely make sure that you're not just Googling stuff and accepting it. Make sure before you use it, that you figure out where it came from, that you back it up with some other source that corroborates it, that the source is reputable and unbiased. If they've cited other sources, go to those sources and make sure that those are reputable. And be careful about using this information in your situation. Make sure that it's applicable. Oh, I got this great data, I'm going to use it. Well, yeah, does it matter? Is it valid for what you're trying to learn and what you're trying to figure out? Maybe, maybe not. Primary research. Before you start primary research, absolutely figure out what it is you need and how you're going to use whatever you get. It's easy to spend money on research that doesn't give you what you need. So make sure that you're doing research that's useful, that I really need this information, that I can use it, and what I get is going to be useful. We can do primary research by observing activities or behaviors. We can do surveys. We can do experiments. Once again, you have to make sure that what you're doing is going to give you valid answers. There's a lot of things you can do, but how well they work is another question. How reliable they are. Focus groups are used a lot by marketers because they're looking for insight into how people think. So focus groups are used, for instance, to determine whether a particular advertisement may be effective. It's used to see whether a particular product may be interesting to consumers, whether the features of the product meet the needs of consumers. Can be useful. Be careful, it's not generally very statistically valid because it's usually a small group of people, but it can provide insight. And I can give an example from my business past. The ski company Salomon I organized focus groups from them at their request because I had a customer base that was their target market, and they asked me to organize a certain category or group of customer types into focus groups, and they sent their executives over to meet with these folks in a relaxed, actually dinner kind of setting, so that they could ask questions about what it was they really wanted in a particular ski product. What is it that you don't get out of what you're using now? What is it that you'd like to get from a ski product? What is it? And they really used it. They listened, and when the products that they were designing came out a year or two later, they included much of what the focus groups were looking for, and the products were extremely successful in the marketplace. So they used focus groups. It was certainly not an inexpensive process for them, but they listened and they learned and they incorporated what they learned into their product design, and that ended up being, their product ended up being successful. So it can work. Just got to be careful about what it is you're doing. Where do you get your information? What do people want in a ski boot? Oh, I don't know. What do they want? Well, they'll tell you what they want. But then you have to listen and process, and you have to realize you're talking to a really small group of people to get this information. Behavioral research, observation of behavior has become much easier and a little scarier in recent years. Used to be that behavioral research was some person standing in a, let's say, a retail store and watching how people behaved. Now it's done with sensors and cameras, and you don't even know what's happening, and that's a little frightening from a privacy standpoint, but it's definitely going on. How do you react when you walk into a grocery store? What do you pick up and look at? What is it that you put in your cart? Is it color? Is it location on the shelf? Is it printing? Is it brand name? What is it? What is it that makes you choose that one rather than the other one? That's behavioral research. We're all subject to that, and marketers are trying to figure out what it is that drives you, what makes you choose this or that. Can help marketers figure out new product ideas, watch what people like, don't like, plan for different marketing groups and marketing campaigns, changing packaging, all sorts of things. So that's behavioral research. Research is expensive. It's a budget item. You have to make sure that it's useful, and primary is definitely more expensive than secondary research. You can also use research after you've already started selling a product to see how people react to it. So we already have a product on the market. How do people react when they buy it, when they use it, when they pick it up in the store, when they see the price tag, whatever? All of those kinds of research can be done. Whatever kind of research you do, primary, secondary, understand that you're never going to have perfect information. It's impossible to have perfect information. You want to get the best available information and use it. And available, affordable is important. So cost-benefit analysis is an important part of that marketing, deciding what kind of marketing research to do. If I do this marketing research, is it going to make my decision better? Is it going to take too long? Am I going to be late to market because I've been doing too much research? Some people like to do huge amounts of research and they can't make decisions because they never have enough. In the business world, you can't really do that. You've got to make decisions with less than complete data. And remember, there may be multiple good decisions. So when you do your first case study, you're going to have information and you're going to have possibilities and you're going to have to decide what to do. And there probably isn't going to be one correct decision. And finally, definitely be respectful of consumer privacy. We've talked about that a little bit. In the academic world, there are lots of constraints on research. There are fewer constraints in the commercial world, but hey, privacy is privacy, and you shouldn't be invading privacy. So make sure that whatever research you're trying to conduct is respectful of those concerns. That wraps that up. You have some questions following this lecture to answer, and then there is a tutorial on how to approach a case study. For some of you, this may be repetitive. You may have done this before, but it's really important to approach case studies in a certain way, and that's what I'm trying to get through with this tutorial. So one more lecture this week on how to approach a case study, and then next week we'll be on to starting some case studies. Thanks very much, and have a good evening.